Thistle and Verse, and today I'm going to be reviewing Hardears, which is a graphic novel created by Matthew Clark and Nigel Lynch with an afterword by Kathy Thomas. I received an advance reader's copy in exchange for a fair and honest review. Thank you to Megascope Comics for that. All opinions are my own. The release date for this has been pushed back a couple times, but I think right now it is scheduled for a May 11th release. This graphic novel is a bind-up of several issues from this series. I don't know exactly when the issues went out. I think the first one was released in like 2014 or so. And Matthew Clark and Nigel Lynch, the creators, are Barbadian. And this is a comic series that incorporates art and culture from Barbados and the Caribbean in general into its world. So the plot of the story is that a hurricane hits the fantastical Hardears island chain, and a mysterious, kind of malevolent industrialist, Mr. Harding, shows up offering factory jobs as aid. The protagonist, Bolo, who is a John Henry-esque character known for his ability to harvest sugarcane faster than machines, and his love interest Zara think that something's up and they investigate and uncover a sinister plot that they have to foil. And as someone who's not very familiar with Barbados, I still thought it was pretty easy to follow along. I think it's like one of those things where, like, if you know the context, you're gonna get more out of like the winks and nods that are going on in the background, but it felt like more like Easter eggs to me. Like, I felt like the story pretty much stood on its own. There's this intro in the beginning that gives you a lot of the lore, which truthfully I didn't really retain, but it was like helpful to flip back to. I'm gonna include a review from a blogger, Wandering Bookmark, who has some interesting backstory on why the villain has the name that he does and why he looks the way that he does. And, I'm looking forward to what reviewers from Barbados and the Caribbean have to say about this work and, like, all the background that they're going to bring. In terms of the story itself, I thought the art was really cool. There are, like, giant animals. There are robots modeled after marine life. In this world, the hurricanes basically look like these elemental giants that slowly rise out of the sea, and then they cause all the wind and the lightning. There is a magic system that is pretty vague. It's called vibes, and vibes is kind of like an energy, and so your body just kind of generates vibes. Living things generate vibes, and the healthier you are, the more vibes you generate. And some people generate more than others, and so they can create larger supernatural feats than others. It was also interesting the land ships that they have. It's kind of like a military thing that they use to deal with hurricanes. It's powered by people working in tandem, usually using music or dance to get everyone in the same rhythm so that they can coordinate their vibes to, like, do this like larger magical feat. There's a lot of commentary going on in here in terms of the main antagonist, Mr. Harding, coming into the islands to exploit the workers for cheap labor. Kind of has real world parallel outsourcing labor and also like hurricane aid sometimes being a way for like international intervention and something that isn't always helpful to the people it's allegedly for the benefit of. There's also themes in here around environmentalism. There are a couple races of people on the Hardears Islands. There are regular humans, and then there are like these kind of human animal hybrids around, and then there's like supernatural creatures. And one of the races on the island are a group of bird people who have been increasingly displaced from their homes as the humans have been chopping down the forest. There is this mystical land of Bedlam, which is a world of extinct creatures. Some of the characters go there at some point looking for help, and some of the creatures that ask for help are very reluctant to jump in because they are extinct because of human activity. In general, I thought the art was really cool. I thought the character designs are interesting and unique. And I thought that, especially the art around Mr. Harding, was really great. Very foreboding, very spooky, very menacing as the series goes on. I think that the way that the story ended, it has a good setup for future issues, and I feel like it can go a lot of different ways. So those were all the things that I liked about it. In terms of things that didn't work as well for me, there's some details that I found confusing. Like, there are people teaming up who I wasn't sure why they were teaming up, or even how they were able to team up. Like, there isn't a whole lot of talk of, like, this is like a massive resistance. How are you coordinating these people? At some point, there's a smear campaign going against Bolo and Zara. Like, how are you convincing people that you're actually fighting for them? Stuff like that. And this is very much like a fantasy action comic. Their focus really is on, like, the fight scenes. So I couldn't really tell you a whole lot about the characters as people. They're kind of like character tropes that are there to like keep the plot moving. And I think that if they had been fleshed out more, that would have been great, because at a certain point it did sort of feel like this is just happening because of like a greater story arc, and because this is the type of story that, you know, the creators want to tell. And like, just because I knew so little about the characters, it wasn't clear to me why things were happening, why they were going to certain places for help, why they're able to do certain things. I think that if there'd been more focus on the characters, then some of the plot stuff could have made more sense, or it just wouldn't have been like as glaring to me. And I think there's also, I had some issues with how the female characters were drawn. So this isn't like a just a this comic criticism, it's like a fairly common criticism for sort of like action comics with women. In this case, there was like a certain scene that like was very jarring to me, and that kind of made me stop and kind of go back and reevaluate just how the creators showed women in the comic. Also, a point of note that in the arc that I have, it's black and white, and eventually it's going to have color, so some things might look different once all the details are going in. But something that I noticed was that, you know, Zara's the love interest. There's a lot of focus on like her butt and like her skirt being like very sheer and like clinging to her body. But there was a point where it felt kind of disrespectful. A hurricane hits the islands, and it's showing the aftermath of that hurricane. People are kind of like taking it in stride. Like, there's some grim humor about like government response to the hurricanes and like who is prioritized. And then there's a scene where like Zara's house is like completely destroyed. Her and her family are trapped inside. And we find out that her family that she lived with has died. And Zara is like crying, sobbing. She's getting pulled out of the wreckage of the house. And the way the panel was drawn, Zara's butt is like front and center with like this very sheer skirt on it, like very like untouched. It's like this sad moment, like why aren't we seeing scenes that like allow us to share in Zara's grief? I think that was probably like the most like squicky thing I saw. And then there's like a moment where they're talking about her dead relatives. Zara's relatives, she lives with like, I think it was like her grandma and her grandpa. They're talking about, you know, oh, Zara's family is dead. And when they're talking about that, it's like showing these very stiff legs in the air, and it's like undignified pose, like almost like a dead cat on its back. I wasn't sure what the point of that was. Like, I think it was supposed to be kind of like funny in a grim way. Like, I didn't think it was really doing what the creators were trying to do with it. And so I think moving forward, I'd like the creators to be more thoughtful in terms of like how they show female characters in distress, and like when's a fun time for fan service, and like when is it just like not the time. All in all, I thought this was a fun comic. I think the art really carried it for me, but I do think that it felt a little sketched in when it came to like the smaller details of the world. And, you know, I hope that's something that they could build on moving forward. So that was all. Thanks for watching. What type of comics do you like to read? Are there any fantasy action comics that you would recommend? Do you think you'll be giving this a read? If you read it already, what did you think of it? If you liked the video, please hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, and, you know, goodbye, take care of yourselves. Thanks again for watching.